Hey friend, Graham here from recordingrevolution.com. Today, I'm going to take you through a little mix breakdown of one of the songs that I co-wrote and produced with Grammy-nominated producer Ill Factor. It's called Myth of You, came out on our latest EP, The Good Life, that just dropped this past January. And I'm going to walk you through all the plugins I'm using, how I got all the sounds I got, and sort of give you a tour of what we did to create this song. So let me just give you a little taste of what it sounds like. Very fun. It's kind of our bouncy track, right? I call it on the EP. I call it like the road trip track. It's like I picture myself on Highway 1 on the Pacific Coast, right? Pacific Coast Highway, top down on some convertible that I don't own, and it's sunny, and I'm smiley. And yeah, anyway, sorry, not all the songs are like this, but I really like this one. It was a fun tune to work on, and the song came to be because Ill Factor and I worked together on a song 3 years ago called Raise My Flag, and we actually had the fun honor of the Roots playing it on Jimmy Fallon. That was kind of cool. They did a little cover of it. But that was a cool hybrid of his electronic music background, my rock background, and putting them together. And we did another single a couple years later, and we're like, dude, we just need to do a whole EP. So we did a whole EP, went to Miami and hang out for 48 hours with Ill, and we kind of wrote a bunch of song skeletons, came up with a bunch of sounds during those 2 days. And then from there, we fleshed them out. He added a lot of production. I added guitars and vocals and mix and all that kind of stuff. And so what I thought I would do is take you to the verse here, and we'll sort of break down some of the sounds we've got. Let's see where we are here. Here's a little intro.
I got search nearly every day and never find someone so divine. Voice like a breeze and a face like the sun. Just the thought of you blows my mind. Tell me more, I believe every story that you can find.
Right, so you get a sense in the verse it's really sparse, and that's a good little tip for you is contrast. The hook is really full and big. The verse is really sparse. So let's start with the drums, because that's how this song came to be. We actually were listening to a bunch of random songs on Spotify, just getting inspiration, and for whatever reason, we were listening to Audio Slave. Not for whatever reason, because that's a great decision. Audio Slave is freaking awesome. And so we were listening to Like a Stone, which is a really cool song. And we were like, man, that song has just got that simple driving drum beat that kind of is the bedrock of the song. What if we had a driving drum beat like that? And so we literally stole just the tempo to sort of stay in that mid-tempo range. And this is what we got. Right, real simple drum beat. And again, he works with a lot of loops. So these are just loops that he's just comping together. We're creating sounds, going through different, kick and snare sounds. And we just use that as the bedrock. From there, he added this little dot synth that he was just playing around with. That's what we had, just some cool sounds, right? That's when I started to bring in some little Graham. I was like, okay, let's grab the bass. And so we grabbed my little cheap Squier bass guitar and added that to the mix. So no pun intended. Let's add the drums back in and add the little dot synth. And that's the song. Okay, that's like the main riff. We were like, okay, this is cool. Now, to be fair, that sound was what we played with on day one. If I take away the plugins on the bass, that was literally what we got on recording day, on songwriting day. We plugged it in direct to his interface, slapped probably amplitude or some kind of amp simulation on it just to get some crunch. And we were just like, get a cool distortion quick. Let's get something quick. And that's what we had. I fully intended to re-record the bass when I got home. But I just loved that sound. It was just the right crunch. And when I came time to put some guitars on this at home and lay down vocals and write lyrics and all that stuff, I said, I don't want to change it. I love this. So let's just talk about what I did to make the bass a little fatter because it's a little thin here. And I've covered this, I think, before. I just wanted to give a little quick taste of this. First thing is I pulled up SSL channel strip from Waves, and you're going to see a lot of this on this mix, but just the quick dirty of it is this dirty bass sound is already there. What we need to do is make it fatter and beefier because it was a little weak, right? I mean, it sounds cool, but it's not going to hold down a song. So I'm playing with a couple of things. I'm actually rolling off a little low end high pass filter up to 33 just to get rid of any like woofy stuff that's not useful. Then I'm doing a boost at its sweet spot, which felt like 90 hertz, felt like the sweet spot to give it a little bell boost, to give it some thickness. I'm taking out a little bit of 600 where a lot of times cheap basses and cheap guitars in general can sound cheap in the 400 to 600 range, and this one sounded pretty cheap there. That kind of cleans it up. And then give it some more bite at around 1K. So I gave it a little 3 dB boost at around 1K, which is kind of where that mid-rangey distortion is. Slap a little compression on it, and here's what this does. Right? Before, after. Rounder, a little fatter. So we took it there. Then we grabbed Slate Digital and just went to town. So on the mix rack, you can just add in a bunch of plugins. I added 3. The 4th one is just a trimmer to turn everything down because it got loud. One, I wanted more bite, and this Neve emulation is pretty redonkulous. So I gave it a little bit of a bite, push at around 1.6. So given that mid-range punch, a little bit of 2K and a little bit of a low end bump around the similar 80, 90 hertz or so. So again, I'm just kind of using this to give it some analog. I'm just doing 3 boosts here, which is not very Graham, but this EQ just sounds so good. And I was like, I need more. So I added some of that. I'm adding some tube saturation using the virtual tube collection. Typically, I use the London tube, but I really like the Hollywood tube on this one just to saturate it a bit. And then I'm using Revival, which is a harmonic exciter plugin. So kind of like more saturation to give it some top end shimmer, which is literally what it's called. And you can take a listen to what this does to it. Just a little rounder, a little more bite. I probably could take the gain up a smidge because I was turning it down so I wasn't making it too loud, but I liked what this is adding to the mix. So far, you take away those 2 plugins and you can hear how the bass gets from pretty cool to weak was where it started. Much better. And then the final step was a little room reverb just to, I'm routing that to, where's the reverb? Down here. I'm using the drum room preset on the stock reverb here, the air reverb. I love the drum room as a fun preset. And so I'm just running a little bit of the bass to that to give it a sense of width. right? And it puts it into space. I really wanted to hear like a echoey space on this song. So that's just a cool sort of where that was like an inspiration for the song, that bass line to the drum beat. And you can sort of hear how it really got fatter and crazier. Drums, I didn't do a ton to. It was kind of a drum beat. So there's the loop here, and then we added a kick and a snare. I literally did not touch the loop. I left it alone. I just added some compression and sort of a low frequency parallel EQ with a custom series lift to make the kick a little fatter. Here we go. Take a listen to this kick. Take it away. Just made it a punchier kick, right? And then the snare, I'm just using thickness on revival, so some harmonic thickness and some same custom series lift punch EQ just to fatten up the snare. Here's the snare before. After. Right? Just adding that tone. It didn't have any tone. It had good crack, but no tone. So just thickening up the kick and the snare a little bit. Other than that, drums were great. I just put them through the room reverb as well. So they had that sense of space, right? Here's the loop by itself without the room reverb. Just put it in the same room, and the same with like the kick and the snare, right? By themselves, they're just like thick, but mono with a room reverb. Just a little bit of depth. That's it. Just I didn't touch the drums at all, right? Good drum sounds make for easy mixing. So that's like the foundation of the song. Let's get to the guitars. We'll work our way up. There's a pre-chorus that has some crunchy guitars that come in.
Every night.
Right? These little guys here. These are just simple overdriven guitars. They sound so weak by themselves. Because I'm leaving room for the bass to be the fat guy. See how much cooler they are together? The mistake here with guitars is if you're thinking you need a fat, thick guitar sound, is actually creating too fat or thick of a guitar sound when you really want to have a fat, thick guitar and bass sound together, and they all play a role. So if you already have some fatness and thickness from the bass, you probably don't need as much low end on the guitars. So all I'm adding to the guitars is some tube saturation. There's the London tube I talked about earlier. And it just adds a little bit of grit to a virtual amp because I think I was just playing this through my Avid 11 rack. And then I've got a different guitar part. It's just a picking part in the hook. Let me just mute all the vocals, by the way, so we'll get to those in a minute. Okay, so here's the hook. Right? It's just the same thing. It's just a virtual amp with a little bit of tube saturation. And that's just sort of filling in the chords. Instead of playing chords, I decided to do just a picking part so that it was not going to be too thick. And I let the bass be simple. Right? Again, the bass is holding down the root, and then the guitars are doing the picking stuff. Because really the instrument that matters in this song is the piano. And this is a good little mixing trick is don't do it in the mix, do it in the recording phase, which is if you have a cool hook or like a little lead part, which this was sort of Ill's thing when we got to the hook. This is the piano part he thought up. So we just layered it. He layered it with synths and an echo, right? So it's all the same part. Well, not the serum, that's actually chords. That's what you're hearing on the left. Analog lab on the left and absinthe on the right. And so we're just layering sounds there, and we added, on the SSL channel, I'm just trying to find where in the upper range does it need to come out. Sometimes these synths need a lift. In that case, the absinthe here. That's what it sounded like before, and I said I need more of that air. So I gave it a big shelf boost at 8K, 9 dB shelf boost at 8K. Hear that lift? That's really critical for your ear to perceive that synth. And then on the analog lab on the left, very similar. I did a big lift there as well because it was pretty mild. Just bring some of the brightness out, right? Make it more alive. So I'm using some shelf boosts there. He's using serum for a cool little organ part here to fill in the gaps in the chorus. Gosh, don't you love those chords? Doesn't it remind you of Coldplay? What song is that? I don't know. So cool. So again, I'm just doing a little bit of a mid-range. With organs, I tend to find that the mid-range, that's where they come alive, not the upper range, it's the mid-range. So it could be 1K, could be up to 3K, but where does the organ come alive? So I've got a 2.7K boost here on this organ track and a 1.2K boost on this organ track that he's layered together. Just makes them come alive a lot more and have more bite and stick out in the mix. Those are the main things. He's got a couple other layers. He adds one called Glitter Pad, which is just exactly what it sounds like. And again, I'm just trying to bring out a little bit of sweetness there. Okay, that's most of what's going on. There's a couple little lead guitar parts. There's one here. It's like a little call and response in verse 2. You got to get the lead vocal back.
Let my whole life come undone. Throw away all my hopes and my dreams just so I could be your only one.
Right, so that's just a little call and response guy, and all I'm doing there, other than adding the London tube and some compression to kind of even out the performance a little bit, is I'm putting it through a slap delay, which is critical to this song. It's kind of the vibe. And then there's a lead guitar part here. This was to complement the hook piano in the instrumental, right? So there's an instrumental part. So it's just, again, layer upon layer upon layer. That's most of the guitar work here. Not a lot of heavy lifting mix-wise. But let's go to the vocals. By themselves, if you take away everything, here's sort of the raw vocal.
I could search nearly every day and never find someone so divine.
So that's just me here in my room singing. From there, and I try to get a good vocal take, aka I try to sing well, and then B, I'm going through a little bit of EQ and a little bit of compression on the way in. Nothing really that's dramatic. But to enhance it a bit, I love the London tube. At least on my voice, it sounds good, and it's just a nice thickness element that adds a little bit of je ne sais quoi. It's just, I don't know. You could take it or leave it. I like it. Then I'm doing a little bit of SSL EQ. I usually would use the SSL channel strip from Waves, but since I started with the London Tube, I already was in the Slate virtual mix rack, so I just grabbed his SSL. And I'm just taking out a little bit of 230. I find that a lot of human voices, especially male voices, but all of them have some kind of chest resonance that can be undesirable. And if you can find where it is, usually around 200 hertz or so, boost sweep around until you find where that chest is vibrating into the microphone and cut it out a bit. It really cleans up the vocal and makes it sound more present without having to do any boosting. And then I also took out a little bit of my voice around 7K. I thought it was like a little too much, and a little high pass filter as well. So just 3 cuts here and then some compression with the transformer in. So let's see what this does to the vocal.
I could search nearly every day and never find someone so divine. Voice like a breeze and a face like the sun. Just the thought of you blows my mind.
Right, it's just pushing the vocal up a little bit more, nothing drastic. Then I'm adding the virtual tape machine just to add some more analog mojo to it.
I could search nearly every day and never find someone so divine. Voice like a breeze and a face like the sun. Just the thought of you blows my mind.
These are subtle. If you're not listening on good headphones or speakers, you won't even hear the difference. But there's like this upper frequency that's being added, this energy that's being added that just adds a little bit of character to the vocal. And I was going for full on analog. Then I'm just using a little de-esser because the S's were a little harsh.
I could search nearly every day.
I could search. If you take it away,
I could search.
hear that S on search
I could search.
with the de-esser.
I could search nearly every day.
So it really just brings out a little bit, or it softens, I should say, the S's so it's not as harsh or as distracting. So simple de-esser. And I just found that around 6K is where I had that offensive frequency. Here's the slap delay. I'm using a send to send it to that same slap. Oh, I didn't show you the slap delay yet. It's here. I'm using Echo Boy. And Analog Vocal Slapper is the preset I'm using. And I'm sending a little bit of the vocal to that.
I could search nearly every day and never find someone so divine.
Why analogs? Why like a slap delay? That's what I heard in my head from day one when I was demoing the song at Ill Studio. It just was a cool sound I wanted to do. And then I'm using the same room reverb to give it some width.
I could search nearly every day and never find someone so divine.
That gives it a little bit of left and right width, where the slap delay is more front to back slap. So, you take all that away, you've got this, and we'll go to a louder part.
Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. I believe every story that you can find.
Take it all away.
Tell me more, tell me more. I believe every story that you. Tell me more. I believe every story that you can find.
A little more up front, a little more contained. This is not a drastic vocal change, but it kind of gets that vocal sound that I want. And so that's like the main vocal sound we got going on here. And then we got some background vocals. So we've got a couple of things going on here. We'll take, we've got some doubles, and then we've got some harmonies. So in the hook here. So here's the lead vocal and the doubles. Right, and I'm using the SSL primarily for compression and also, believe it or not, a low pass filter. So rolling off some of the high end. I like to do that with background vocals a lot because it makes them less bright, less present, so they don't compete with the lead vocal. So I'm just using that, and then I'm using the London Tube because I really like that on the vocals. But they're just sort of panned 50 left, 50 right. And then I've got the harmonies that Ill laid down. And he's got 4 of them here.
I'm falling for the myth of you. Ooh, falling for the myth of you.
So I've got 2 up the middle and 2 on the hard left and right. And so same kind of thing. I'm rolling off a lot of top end, a high pass filter as well. I'm trying to make them poke out where it makes sense in the mid range, scoop out any low mids that don't make sense. And again, I don't want what I love about what he sent me is that his harmony was already a little darker, so it already kind of fits nicely with the doubles and the double and the triple, and they tuck under the lead vocal. Put the lead vocal in.
I'm falling for the myth of you.
You want the lead vocal to always be the main thing, and you want the background vocals to support it, not take over. Now, at the end of the song, there's some call and responses going on. So I added just like I hit record and just did a call, like a response to myself on this track here I call Vox End, and I decided to make it really filtery. So I'm using a high pass and a low pass and a mid-range bump at around 1K and putting it through Echo Boy Jr. just to get a little bit of its own delay here. So you can take a listen. Giving it that stereo delay. You take it away.
Falling for the myth of you.
And so I just wanted to filter it.
Falling for the myth of you.
It's kind of that telephone effect, right? Which you just roll off low end. But really what you're noticing is it rolling off the top end. So all you got is mid range. And you find the sweet spot that you like. And then I wanted to make it really dreamy. So I didn't have a dreamy delay already in place. I had the slap, I had the room reverb. So I just slapped on my own mono to stereo delay on this track. So it turns it into a stereo track. And I just found the sort of bounce and the balance, used the mix, not that one, sorry, the mix knob here between dry and wet to get a balance between the dry signal and the delay return.
Falling for the myth of you.
And I'm just trying to create an effect. So I'm setting that while I'm listening to it in context, right?
I'm falling for the myth of you. I'm falling for the myth of you. I'm falling for the myth of you.
Yeah, so we're just sort of creating that little sound. And final thing, when I do mixes like this, I love, love, love percussion. You can't see it very well, but there's a tambourine here, and it's just a simple loop. If he hadn't done this, and he's a genius, that's why he'll do this. I bought a tambourine. I keep it at my house in my studio, so even when I'm mixing other people's songs, I can just add a tambourine to the chorus because I feel like a lot of times the chorus needs a lift of energy. And adding a tambourine and just look, all I'm doing is just making sure it's got that high end energy. So I've got a 8K shelf boost. That's it, right? Just make sure it's got that energy. Adding it in at a really low volume, it just is all you need for that little lift of energy. Whoa, you take it away and all of a sudden the energy goes away because you didn't hear it until you took it away. Again, you have to have good headphones on, but there's that, it's not something you hear, it's something you feel, and it is a lift in energy. It's the only way I can describe it. A tambourine well placed, you're not going to really hear it. It is subtle, but it adds that energy. It's like an energy button. If you could just, hey, could I just bring up the energy somehow in this chorus? You don't have to turn up the chorus. You just add a little tambourine, tuck it underneath. Call it a day, my friend. Hopefully that was helpful to you. I want to give you something, and then I have a question for you. One, I want to give you something that will help you with your mixes. We're talking about mixing, and it's my 8-step mixing checklist. It walks you through my 8-step process of how I mix this song, Myth of You, how I mix every song. It's a framework. You're going to mix songs differently than I am. You're going to have different sounds. You're going to like different things, but still you need a system. You need a step-by-step framework of what to do first, second, third, fourth to then create the mixes that you want to create. So it's a free guide. It's a simple checklist. Just go to mixingchecklist.com. Put the link here on the screen. It's below as well in the description. Mixingchecklist.com. You'll get the checklist. Not only that, I'm going to give you some stems that you can import into your own DAW of choice and practice mixing on. So some practice tracks and some other goodies as well. So grab that guide and those goodies at mixingchecklist.com. Absolutely free. And then let me ask you a question. Do you like this kind of video? Would you like to see more mix breakdowns? If so, let me know. And either way, let me know what kind of content you want to see. What do you want to see on the channel? I'm always trying to listen to my students. So tell me what kind of material you want me to cover, what kind of questions you have, or what kind of videos you like to see on this channel, and I will do my best to deliver. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for giving it a like. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you on another video real soon.